Jeremy, how are you?
We did it.
We did. We're here. We
We
are
are
here.
here.
We are live.
Amazing.
Friday. Good to see
I-
you, my friend.
Good to see you, friend. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you today and just authentically connect and be vulnerable
Love
and
it.
see what happens.
I love it. And I have said from the moment I met you that you are like my brother from another mother.
Sounds accurate.
We just like totally clicked. Good.
Yep.
Good.
That's true. We have
Yeah.
clicked.
Yeah.
We've been each other's support system for the last 3 months, on
Seriously.
and off.
Yes. It's awesome. All right. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing to talk about your story. What I'm doing with Michelle's Conversations That Matters, elevating the conversation about mental health, something we're both very passionate about. And I think that is really what brought us together, is our commitment to removing stigma and having people feel heard and accepted for who they are. So I'm doing the series inviting all people from all walks of life onto my show with stories, people who have expertise, clinicians to talk to us and educate us about certain diagnosis. And what I do professionally is I work with organizations to create cultures of compassion for people with invisible disability and to empower employees so that they feel like they are fully engaged in their life and in their job. So that's what I do professionally. But for those who don't know the amazing Jeremy Greene, could you please introduce yourself? Where do you live? What do you do? Who you are?
Absolutely. I feel like I'm a bunch of layers. However, for the interest of time, I am a high performance coach / mindset coach. I hold a space for people to practice an ideal version of themselves until it becomes reality. And yes, it's about reprogramming, helping them reprogram their brains. You want to know about a little bit my backstory, or kind of?
So tell us, like, why? How did you get into what you do right now, in terms of, like, your story, and then what had you get here?
Yeah. Well, it's one of those. I went through a lot of pain, and when I was a kid, I had an older brother who was 7 years older than me, and he's on the spectrum. He's living young adult living with autism, and I was his punching bag. And whenever the Lakers lost, any sports team for that matter, when he lost at his video game, when he anything happened, something didn't go his way, the world was very hard for him, and he took it out on me consistently. I was terrified of him, and I took on that trauma, and the trauma led to the stories I took on, which is like, I'm a punching bag. I bring no value to the world. I deserve to be punished, and no one likes me, and I just was so scared to put myself out there. And then it turned, well, it fast forward a few years, and it gets into middle school, and I was getting in an argument with like a good friend of mine, and then instead of us hashing it out, he decided to start the anti-Jeremy movement, which was basically, he got a bunch of people lined up, and they all bullied me. And every time, like for example, one time I had a half empty bottle of Powerade thrown at my head from 2 stories. Like the second story, I had these 2 guys called a stunner, where they grab the back of your neck and they throw you to the floor. So I hit my head on the concrete because I fell to the floor, just so they can do it. He would tie. I didn't know this. I didn't remember this because I suppressed it until recently. But I actually had him on my podcast, and he's told me some stuff that I forgot that I kind of repressed. And one of those things, he would tie my backpack, like the strap, to the chair, and he would tie it, and then when the bell would ring, I would get up and the chair would follow me and everyone would laugh. And it was very hard. Like I got to I've been to some pretty dark spaces because of all these stories that I took on.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to some spaces at one point where I felt like this world is better off without me. And I couldn't go up to anybody because I just thought no one likes me. Like everyone, even before I even met people, I would just be like, they don't like me.
Mm-hmm. Ugh, I'm so sorry. That's got to be a traumatic way to start off your life, growing up in that environment. And so that ultimately would result in you struggling with social anxiety, correct?
Yes, it definitely did. I was so scared of rejection and putting myself out there that I just got a lot of anxiety just because I just was, like I said, I was a punching bag. Like it led to me, but it wasn't until later on, like years later, that I realized that social anxiety, that anxiety that I had, like had a very powerful positive intention of just keeping me safe. Even when that anxiety is saying no one else likes you,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
underneath no one likes you is, I'm going to keep you safe. I got your back.
Yeah, yeah. It's great that you know to look underneath. I think that's powerful. So ultimately, you now are a coach, but before you could become a coach, you would have to get clear on some things and heal yourself. What was that journey like?
Very long, very arduous, very challenging. I was just so tired of hating myself. It was so exhausting. I would hate on myself so much. I always wanted to be other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I would look at all the quote unquote confident people around me, and I just like, I want to be like that person so badly.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be liked. I want people to like me. I want to have community. I want to have friends. I want to believe in myself so bad. So I did so many challenges and just retreats in the forest. How to become allies with my inner critics, and 10-day silent meditation retreats in the middle of nowhere. And I soloed backpacks Europe, and I solo backpacked Asia. I did a challenge of interviewing celebrities on the red carpet to kind of challenge my comfort zone. I did free hugs and like globally, from like LA to Oregon to Canada to Asia. I just did training after training after training on just being able to love myself and help learn to see. I didn't know, because I told myself a lot of the times that this is going to last forever, which I found out years later wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, learning all the stuff that I learned for my own benefit, people started to kind of reach out that were going through a hard time, and I kept on having people reach out and ask support, and how do I do this and this, and I was like, oh wait, I didn't realize how much I learned in the journey of trying to turn around my ways of being.
Amazing. And that's what led you ultimately to want to help people, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not gonna lie, if I looked back and I did a lot of processing, I've done a lot of facilitations where I go back into my younger self and what I was feeling in the moment, and I processed. I did a thing where I processed my anger towards my bully 20 years later, and all the sadness and hurt that I had towards my bully, I finally processed it 20 years later. And yes, to answer your question, if I can help one person have it a little easier, have a little more hope than I had at the time, that just fills me up. It fills me up because it was really, really tough. And I'm not trying to play this victim card, but it lights me up to help to show people the hope that they are choosing not to look at. It's hard. It's very hard.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to be resigned, I would think. Knowing what you've been through, it's much easier to play the victim card and be resigned than it is to do something about it, like reprogram our brain. So let's talk about that, because when I said to you, Jeremy, what are we going to call this? What is our conversation going to be about? You said how we can reprogram our brain. So talk to us about that. What do you mean by that?
So doing a lot of retreats, I did a lot of looking back at the way I look, the stories I was telling myself, and my mindset and what I was practicing. And the way I learned our brain works is it's what we practice, like the ways of thinking that we practice. So for many, many years, I bring no value to the world. And it's almost like muscle groups in the brain. So every time I say no one likes me, I strengthen that muscle in my brain. And I didn't even realize that. So as far as reprogramming our brains, reprogram my brains, there's this really good exercise you can do where you look in the mirror for like 5-10 minutes and you have to say positive things about yourself and like powerful affirmations, like I'm powerhouse of self-love and authentic human connection. I bring value everywhere I go. I'm super successful in everything I do. Money comes to me easily and effortlessly. I'm doing the best I can. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm incredible. I'm amazing. And I did this for 10 minutes straight in the mirror. And it was so hard and so challenging. And then afterwards, I realized I felt so much better. And those like quote unquote normal stories that my brain would do just kind of fizzled out for a short amount of time. And then stuff like that, I realized, yes, I can reprogram my brain. And it's very hard because like change is hard. Our brains don't want change, even if it's positive change.
Right.
So it's understanding that growth and that is going to be really painful in the beginning.
Right.
But it's almost like the muscle. After you work that muscle out, it's like sore the next day type of thing. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean you're not getting stronger. It just means it's a little bit sore. So it's just practicing those new ways of thinking. So basically what you can do is you write out all your negative thoughts without judgment, because their thoughts are just thoughts.
Yeah.
What happens is the negative thoughts, I still go through this, and it's something I'm always reminding myself. My negative thoughts don't define me. I just choose to see them as reality when they're not. So one thing you can do is write out all the negative thoughts that come out without judgment, and then write the opposite, and then practice those just to see what happens. That's just one tip.
That mirror exercise is powerful. Going back to that, I did that in a course I took about like looking in your own eyes and saying those things and how powerful that is, or even like recording your voice in your phone and listening to your voice with the positivity, the positive affirmations or whatever. The thing I love about you, Jeremy, is like you can't, like people don't, anyone can be a coach, yes, to a certain extent, but unless you've walked the walk and have been in the mud and in the trenches like you have, there's a certain value that you add, that you bring to people as you serve them and support them. You get it. You've walked a moment in their shoes. And I think that's really important for people to think about if they're looking for someone to guide them. Tell us what, has been the most fulfilling aspect of helping people for you personally.
Yeah, I think it's, when I first started coaching way back, I had imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to like help the people, my clients? And it's normal, normalizing that dynamic. And as far as the most fulfilling is when I sit down with someone, because I have my Jeremy Talks to Strangers Instagram. That's just another thing I did to just push my accountability and force me to like talk to people, even when I was in the mood. But going back to your question, the fulfilling thing is when I see an amazing side to people. I do this often, and they're choosing to not see it, and they finally see that amazing within themselves, and I see that look of hope as far as what they can accomplish they never thought was possible, and that feels so good. And one of my cornerstones of my coaching is and healing in general is that creating a compassionate relationship with oneself is the biggest start of our healing process. My healing process was and I don't know. I'm a huge, maybe selfishly, I love it when people love themselves more because they'll treat me better.
Yeah. How about it, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. Let me be real. Like,
So true.
I think that people treat others a little bit better than they treat themselves.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It brings me joy to help give people hope because I didn't have hope for a long time.
Even in our friendship, Jeremy, I have to say, you know, the texts that we've exchanged, the things that maybe I said that you give me subtle corrections to remind myself of what I'm capable of and, you know, how I show up and I diminish. And I think we oftentimes tend to diminish what we bring to the table. So I appreciate your friendship in reminding me, because I think it's just what we do, and we have to stop doing that and step into our power.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. No,
I think it's like life is a practice, and it's like, what are you choosing to practice today? Like, and to be honest, it's one of the biggest reasons it's very hard is because evolutionarily, like our brains are programmed to look for the negatives. Like, I think I think the thing I read about it is like we look at 20 negatives per one positive. It's like the loss aversion bias. Like our brain does it to keep us safe because we're still in like caveman, cavewomen, you know, times in our brain's mind. And then yeah, it's hard, but it's very doable. And with a combination of like creating, you know, understanding why the negative voice is saying what it's saying underneath it at once piece, and creating like the parts of like naming the inner critic and like becoming friends with it, and creating like a really supportive version of yourself and naming that. Like I had a session yesterday with the client, and she has a supportive side that she wasn't channeling recently. So she named it Gaia, and I was like, "What is Gaia telling you right now?" And it was so powerful. Gaia said, "You're doing okay. You just had like," but it's powerful because I held the space for her to tell her herself. Because it doesn't matter how many people, like for me personally, people like, you're so funny and amazing, because I didn't have the belief system about myself. It didn't matter.
It didn't matter.
And it's like, it has to do with confirmation bias. Like I thought no one likes me. So with confirmation bias, which is another like study that's done in psychology, is that we, you know, it's a pattern in which individuals seek only information that will reaffirm what they already believe. So when 20 people would say you're amazing, and then one person would say you suck, I'm like, I suck. See, boom.
See, there it is.
Someone said it.
Yeah, that's funny. Oh my gosh, the brain. It's designed to protect us, not to make us happy.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I still practice it. Like I literally go out and like I used to think people in Los Angeles weren't friendly, and I would practice that like confirmation bias. And then I challenged myself to be like, everyone in LA is so nice. Everyone in LA is so nice. And like when I traveled Asia, I would do it like, well, everyone in Taiwan, everyone in Cambodia, wherever I would say it out loud. And then people actually ended up being nicer.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. What other hacks do you have to help us?
I have so many hacks. Are you kidding me?
Toss out a few. I think the audience would love it. Give us some of your hacks. What do you tell your clients to help them with their mindset, just in keeping a healthy, positive mindset?
I think the biggest one is as far as our dreams, dreaming of what's possible, dreaming from a space of abundance rather than where we are now, in the sense of I'm trying to do this. I see a lot of clients say I'm trying to do this, and instead of saying I'm trying to, because you're always going to be trying to do it if you're not giving yourself credit for those micro wins.
Yeah.
So it's like you're doing it now. I'm becoming better at speaking instead of I'm trying to become a better speaker. Like check your powerful language. Like I'm becoming a better speaker more and more each and every day, each and every single moment. And as far as making progress, be very compassionate with yourself. Start slow. What I see is my clients, they try to do too much too soon. So for example, I'll just give you one example. I had a client that says, I want to meditate every day. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the last time you meditated? I've never meditated. And then they will meditate like once or twice in a week's time, and they'll be bummed out. And I'm like, you're upset with yourself, but it's because you set yourself up for that failure. You just meditated 100 to 200% more than you've ever meditated. That's a win. So
That's a win.
start with those baby steps, start slow and build up and like celebrate the wins.
Yes.
Even the small ones, because then like your brain is going out of its like genetic coding and you're doing that, and then you don't give yourself credit. It's like, why am I gonna like try if they don't give me credit?
I want to jump on that, celebrating the wins or celebrating the successes. We so do not do that. You're absolutely right that we need to do that. And I think, even just the acknowledgement of what you were able to do, even if your yardstick is over here and you don't measure this, expectation that you have, we have to have the practice of acknowledging what we did do. I'm like most people, like I have targets out there, but like I don't stop to acknowledge how far I've come versus how far I still want to go. And that little bit of acknowledgement can help build momentum. And,
it also helps just living in the moment. I know like they say it often, as long as you're in the now, you're happy. And it's so much easier said than done, because our brain is hardwired to want to be in the future and be in the past, because it knows exactly what happened in the past, so it's in control, or it can make up whatever it wants in the future, and it can make it up, so it's in control. But in the present moment, Michelle, oh my gosh, hi, like your brain your brain did not know I was going to do that. And I do agree, we don't celebrate our wins, and it's because our brain doesn't like being present. And just one more tip that I noticed that most people do, as far as everyone always says gratitude is important, and it is, but the problem is people do gratitude not as powerfully as they could. They do like, I'm grateful for my family and friends. Like your brain gets bored, and it's just so it's like watching I always say it's like watching your favorite TV show, this same episode over and over. Even if it's really good, your brain's gonna get bored. So one more tip is that it's really important for me is gratitude. Make it really pertinent to that day, more specific, because it's not about the gratitude, it's about the feeling, and it just helps you to be more present. Because if you're practicing it, then you're going to look for those things that bring you joy. Like my commitment to joy is the most pivotal, powerful thing I can possibly commit to.
That's amazing. I love that. I absolutely love that. I think gratitude, people underestimate the power of gratitude. They really, really do. And it can literally shift your entire energy. If you're in a funk, if you're, wallowing in something that didn't go right, like it sounds like totally like hokey, but if you reflected on things that were working, it could totally make a difference. And because I've been there and I've done it, and I'm like, oh, well, choose a different thought, period.
Yeah.
Choose a better thought.
When I'm having a hard time, my mentor is like, before we have a chat, text me 10 to 20 things you're grateful for today. And I'm like, ugh, fine, because I really want to talk to him. I'm grateful for my cereal. It had strawberries and bananas and this and that, and it was really good. And I'm also grateful I woke up and I'm grateful I was easy on myself, and I did my morning routine even though I wasn't in the mood today. I'm grateful that this and then. I was like, oh, whoa, I feel a lot better. Okay.
Yeah. I love that. That's awesome. So what I think really brought us together was our passion for removing stigma and helping people just be accepted for who they are in a society where there's still a lot of shame and fear around mental illness. What do you want people to know about mental health and mental illness?
I think that I have a mental health podcast, so we talk about this a lot. I want people to know that that it's real. It's a real thing. I think we have a sweatshirt that says mental health equals physical health. Mm-hmm. And it's so true. It's so important. And as far as from a mental health perspective, I think that when someone breaks their arm, everyone signs the cast, and I like, how can I support and how can I help? But if someone is going through like having a mental health like challenge, people are so quick to be like, oh, hold on, I can't handle this. I don't know this and that. Hold on, something's wrong with them. They're just that needs to change. It needs to be like, hold on, you're going through a mental health thing. Oh, how can we help? Can we sign your, like, what is that? Like, what is that shift that we need to make?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know. Like
true.
I want there needs to be a safe space for people to share all and not label any emotion as bad or good. They just are. Like sadness is not a negative emotion. Anger is not a negative emotion. All of our emotions can be used in a way to help us if used correctly. And I'm just so tired of people not being able to completely present what's on their mind.
How do you think, we met in Clubhouse, but how do you think Clubhouse is going to help the stigma?
I think it's not the social media or the platform, it's how we use it. And I'm not sure if just because the people I hang out with, it's feeling like there's making progress, if we actually are.
Yeah.
I'm pushing, like I literally, like on my podcast, I purposely reach out to some people who've never talked about like mental health stuff just to kind of, normalize it. But Clubhouse has been a good space, and I've been just pushing and leading by example, and I push other people to do the same. So I don't think it's Clubhouse in general that's going to normalize it. I think it's just another tool we can use to normalize it, to be honest.
I find the platform provides a place for vulnerability. In some of the rooms around mental health, there's like a willingness to be vulnerable and to tell your story and create a relatedness and a depth that you cannot find on other social media platforms, to be honest, because the power of the voice, the power of storytelling, that is just a game changer, in my opinion.
No, I agree. There is that level of it opens it up, because with Instagram, I used to get so overwhelmed with like, oh, let me have the perfect caption, the perfect filter, and the perfect. Let me edit it and put the perfect like thing so people can comment below, blah 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 blah, and like by the time it was like manufactured, it's lost its authenticity, rather than like be more grateful. Boom, like the voice is done. It's real. It's live.
And it's the connection. I think that's why I connected to you, was the vulnerable space we were in. And I don't know, it's just, there's something very warm about listening to another person's voice that really just, you can't really fake it. You're either authentic or you're not with your voice and your conversation and what you're sharing, and people can see through it if you're not,
I agree. I definitely agree.
So tell us about your podcast.
So the podcast wasn't just one of those, as I talked about earlier, it started as another social challenge where I got together with another guy from Instagram who suffered or was challenged with severe social anxiety growing up. And we bonded over that. And we chose to do Instagram Live together, and we did it I think on confidence, and we kind of just did it just to challenge ourselves. And we got a lot of messages saying like, oh, it really helped me, I was going through a hard time, it helped me and it felt good. And I was like, oh wow, what if we did a podcast? So we did a podcast with just us two at first, and we had different topics we would discuss in the beginning, just one-on-one. And then when I moved to Taiwan, I was like, let's have a guest. He's like, I don't know if that'll work, because two of us. We did it anyways. And it started out as just like a way to challenge ourselves and connect with people authentically, but also learn. Because like we have an excuse to have on like really legit over 20 TEDx speakers, motivational speakers, best-selling authors, psychotherapists. And I'm not gonna lie, I once had a podcast episode where I was like having a hard day, and I was like, oh, I'll just use this as an excuse to get a therapy session. So, like, that's awesome. I talked to this guy, PhD coach. I'm like sitting there like, what would you say for someone who's listening? And they're having these issues. What would you say? He knew right away. He's like, Jeremy. Yeah. I'm about to cry. He basically gave me a therapy session.
And it's called what's the name of your podcast in case people want to look it up?
It's called The Social Ninjas.
And you have coined it the number one mental health podcast in the world? In
the entire world, yeah.
The entire world. Whoa.
Yeah.
I love it.
Speaking from that space we talked about, the dreaming, right? Yeah. It's this aspect of a really good exercise I would challenge everyone who's listening to do is close their eyes and just really channel what it would look like if they were completely and 100% satisfied with their life and what impact they're making, how much money they're making, and just what is going on, who's around them, what are they doing, and really channel that like 100% and feel into it and think from that space. Don't think from the space you are now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, our words create our world. It's a phrase I love to remind myself when I'm like having disempowering words, or when you're not beating me up and saying you're not trying, you're doing.
Yeah. I correct you with love, and I know you're open to it. A lot of people are not open to it because they're just so stuck in their ways, and I get it. And that was a hard one for me when I saw people around me. I was like, oh, I could help them, but if they're not open, there's nothing I can do. And there's so many rules in our society that we don't follow, and that's like asking people, hey, are you open to some support, rather than just trying to help them by trying to fix them.
Right.
Like, ask them, are you open to some feedback? Ask first. You know, don't just tell people you're not helping them.
Right.
Maybe there's like, I don't know, just listen. Can you just listen and not comment? Sounds good. And like, if you didn't ask, you would have tried to fix it and give tips and give advice. And it's like, don't give unwarranted advice. You're doing more harm than good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So as we wrap up, my friend, what are your final words of wisdom that you want to share with everyone?
Final words are, as long as you're being authentic, you're never failing. And there's so much to expand on that, but I'm not. But as long as you're being real, and as long as you're being authentic with yourself, most importantly, and the people around you, you're on the right path. You're successful, and things will fall in line. And as long as you're, showing up the way, you're taking steps to show up the way you want to show up, you're doing you're a success.
Amazing. Jeremy, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate our friendship. I appreciate your wisdom. Thank you for who you are in the world, helping people to navigate what you've overcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. And I will talk to you soon, my friend.